In a time of rising unrest, when borders dominate headlines and immigration policy shapes the future of our nation, the truth matters. From the front lines of law enforcement, national security, and public policy, this is Frontline Facts, where rhetoric is stripped away, where politics takes a back seat, and where facts, hard, documented facts, lead the conversation. As instability grows beyond our southern border, as communities feel the impact at home, we bring you informed voices. Attorneys, senior law enforcement leaders, policy experts, and professionals who understand the law, the protocols, and the consequences. This isn't opinion. This isn't spin. This is clarity in a time of confusion. This is Frontline Facts, and the conversation starts now.
Welcome to Frontline Facts with Louisa Deason, where we correct the rhetoric on immigration issues and certainly public policy. Today, we, as Harris County voters, want to know how many people are voting that are dead or that are criminal aliens in this country that should not be voting. Aside from that, how far have our laws come to protect voter integrity, the issues surrounding what Texans are concerned about, and we're going to interview the gentleman who brought the systems up from microfiche to electronic trackpads. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Stan Stanart. He is running for the House of Representatives, District 126 in the Republican Party. Mr. Stan Stanart, welcome to the show.
Lisa, glad to be here.
I am so glad that we finally got to solidify this interview. So what I want our audience to know is exactly what it is. How did you start your political career, so to speak? You started out as a precinct chair. Am I correct in that assessment?
Not really. I became more a political activist. Back in 1988, I went to my very first precinct convention, then the senatorial convention, and the state convention. And as a result, I've gone through that whole process every 2 years and been to every state convention since 1988 in Texas.
That's great. Now, you obviously have experience in that arena, and I think that let's discuss some of the experience that you bring to the table.
And yes, before becoming a precinct chair, I became a president of a Republican club. Then I became a precinct chair later, and then I ended up running for office for not for county clerk, but for a Harris County Department of Education. And I did great in the primary. I took on the incumbent president of the board, and because they had raised our taxes. But then I ended up losing because of the Obama tsunami of 2008.
Well, and you've been a big, strong advocate for voter integrity. That's been what's impressed me the most, considering that today, in today's environment, that is so important to make sure that we get people that are allowed to vote to get out and vote, and those that should not be allowed to vote to make sure that they're held accountable if they break the laws.
Correct. And I don't know if you know, I had actually served in the Electoral College of 2000. And so that after having lost but done so well in the Republican primary of 2008, in 2010, when the county clerk announced she was retiring, I decided to run in that office, and I ended up winning. So, and I was served as 8 years as the Harris County Clerk and chief election official.
That's amazing. Now, one of the things I want to really cover is what are the major concerns to the general population? Let's talk a little bit about voter fraud. What are the major concerns?
Well, I mean, the whole electoral process, the voters are very concerned about their vote being counted accurately, and people who are not eligible to vote and being allowed to vote, and is the whole process, the machines, everything along the way, is it the end result actually what they had voted? So there's a great concern of those because there has been cheating that has gone on.
Well, and how bad is it cheating to your estimation in Harris County?
Well, most of it is really beyond where the process is tracked, and that's ballot by mail. The vote harvesters, people who will get people, go door to door, have relationships with people, and get people to vote a ballot as they want, not necessarily how the voter would do independently. And also the fact that sometimes they'll ask them, you don't need to mark it up. I'll take care of sealing it and mailing it for you. Well, that's an opportunity. So The machines, the people don't have a lot of confidence because it's totally a black box to them. But the machines do go through a rigorous testing process by the federal government before they're used in any elections. And actually, the state of Texas does testing. But I understand people's concern of not of not trusting. But that's why Texas's last session actually put some more additional auditing in place. And I think that abroad as I would like to see, it is a great step forward in verifying that the ballots at some of the polls, random races were chosen and looked at the paper, and that is, and verifying the end results matched at a particular polling places. They only did, I think, 7 election day places and 3 early voting places. But even then, that's a good sampling, not as high as I'd like to see, but does give confidence when the results of the paper, it matches what the results that were reported.
Now, what are some of the other pitfalls? I understand that people have gone to voting places in the past and they've run out of paper, or they've extended the hours, or they've cut it short, or the people have been deferred to other places. How can you control that?
Well, it's all that comes upon the person that is the county clerk, like in Harris County, that runs our elections. We had there's 4 people between me and the current county clerk who ran our elections, and I'll tell you, all 4 of those were incompetent, putting it lightly. And the current person there, she is a Democrat. She at least worked for me the whole 8 years I was there, and is doing a much better job. But it takes someone who understands it to do the chain of custody of your ballot and making sure that everything is taken care of properly and processed correctly.
Now, people ask me often, they'll say, okay, can I bring in a paper that has the list of the people that I want to vote for, or do I have to write it down when I get there? What are the
No.
rules and regulations?
Yeah, they can bring in any paper. They can bring in any magazine, anything that's, has a list of people that, some organizations will suggest they vote. They can bring in their handwritten notes. Just be prepared, though. When you get into the voting place, you cannot bring out your cell phone to look at a list.
Well, and that's great advice. Now, what are some of the other things that may be important for voters to know? I know that I can't stress this enough. I tell people all the time, you really have to educate yourself. You really have to attend
Yes.
some of the community events where your candidates are being highlighted and get to know them and ask them questions. Voting blindly, sometimes people just don't get out and vote because they're so confused. So how do we turn that tide around to maybe some of the people they are frustrated or just don't have the capacity to really understand the process? What are some of the suggestions that you would make?
With so many candidates on our ballot in Harris County, it's almost impossible to personally research every one of them. What I suggest is go get the mailers, the organizations that have what I call brand, that have been around a long time, and organizations that you trust, like whether it's, if you're conservative like I am, pro-life organizations, pro-family organizations, get their list. And at one time, I know my wife put together a spreadsheet with 17 different organizations or, people that she really trusts and how they would suggest. And then you put it into the matrix and you're able to see, okay, well, these are the ones that everybody agrees on. So it makes it easy. Now you focus on the ones that people go back and forth on. Makes your total job a little bit easier. But I know it is hard.
Now, to those that say they don't have any access to the polling facilities, what can we do to accommodate? I know that accessibility is important for everybody to be able to get out and vote.
Well, yeah, if someone is not able to vote, they can vote by mail. If you're over 65, everybody over 65 can vote by mail. If you're homebound, you're in hospital, whatever, you have a reason you can, or if you're out of the county during the whole time of early voting and election day, you can vote by mail.
And election security, that of course is the number one issue. I think there's been polls out there, and I have to kind of take a step back, and I don't agree necessarily, but there's been a lot of talk about the possibility of ICE being out these voting polls, and that's really not their job.
Correct.
So when people say that they need ICE agents out of these voting locations, what is your stance?
No, it's not necessary at all, because first of all, it's making sure that people who are on the voter roll are U.S. citizens. And I'll tell you that under the Trump administration, starting with this term, he has really gone to great lengths of providing databases to the states of people who are citizens and not, so that there is a matching done by the federal government, and they'll send back to the Secretary of State, the people who are on our voter roll that are not citizens or need investigation to actually come to that conclusion. And they did find a number. It wasn't a huge number though for Texas. I believe it was in the hundreds, and to investigate or do something with. Lots of progress has been made within the last few years in verifying that, people who are on the voter rolls are citizens.
Well, and it has to bring some comfort to the voter that says, I'm just tired of voting, and all of a sudden these numbers change dramatically, and it's like there's no way that candidate could have won. Now let's take this to a different level. You were instrumental in bringing those track pads up. I remember you mentioning at a meeting where I met you for the first time a couple of months ago that you were looking through records through microfiche. And so what has come about with voter registration and being able to get to the polls? And I mean, it's pretty well organized. It's a well-oiled machine, so to speak.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the county clerk, is the recorder for the county. So the permanent records were at the like real property records, which they do at 600,000 a year. Documents are recorded with the county just around real estate transactions. So all that was the permanent record was actually stored on microfilm. And when I got there, we within a year we totally did away with that because they were also on mainframes, and so I had to totally modernize the computer systems. We have redundancies, we have backups off sites that are real time. All that infrastructure I put in place because of my background. I'm an engineer by profession, and so we, by modernizing it, and also at the when you go to vote, the voter roll was all on. We created it on an iPad, and we looked at all the other competitors across the country on their electronic electronic poll books, not the voting machines. The poll books. We looked at the whole industry and we couldn't find one that could handle Harris County because we're the third largest county in the United States. And to be able to have an infrastructure that when you have countywide voting, if you vote one place, all the other locations in the county have to know that you voted so that you can't walk down the street and vote again.
Well, that's good. Now let's go over a couple of things. I know that you're running for House of Representatives in Texas for the Republican Party, District 126.
Yes.
Tell me, what is the first thing the first three top priorities that you have once you get into office?
Well, of course, the voters across the state are, concerned about their property taxes. That's a big hot deal. Another hot deal for my area is the flooding issues that we've experienced. A lot of voters are concerned about that. And of course, my area of expertise around elections and election integrity. It will be an asset in the House. I'll be the most knowledgeable on elections and election integrity for the last 3 years. I've been the chairman of the Ballot Security Committee for the Harris County Republican Party, and also I have the title of vice chair for election integrity. I'm on national election integrity calls and also on state wide calls with the leaders across this state and across the nation.
Well, and I think at the forefront, you said it right there. People are so concerned about what's going to happen if we have another major flood, because roads have not been fixed to the capacity where we would be able to withstand another, say, Harvey, God forbid. But the other concern is also property taxes. And every time we have a flood, the floodplains change, and there's redesigning. And so to the person who says, well, I don't really want to commit because I don't want to buy a property because the property taxes are so high, what are some of the things that you would like to present or that you'd hope to change?
Well, usually it's some dedicated funding to handle this, but the county is responsible primarily for dealing with the flooding issues. And once the Democrats took control, they actually allocated some of the dollars in my district to other parts of the county because the Democrats wanted to take care of their voters disproportionately to what the engineering plans that initially came up with the solutions. You know, that Sam Harless, who's retiring, he did bring some funding from the state, and there was also some federal dollars, I think, from one of the congressional guys that brought money to the district too. So, it takes money to put the retention ponds necessary to be able to handle the majority of these big floods. So the county has been making good progress, not as fast as everybody wants, but there are plans in place, and there's activity continuing to go. A 500-year flood, yeah, well, there are going to be some people flooding, but the goal here is that a significantly less number of people ultimately have to deal with the flooding if we put all these retentions and things in place.
Well, and one of the things that is concerning is we live I live in Harris County. I'm up near Northwest, and Cypress Creek and some of those
Hmm.
creeks are always over flooding.
Yes.
Even with the
Yes.
heavy rain, if we would just have constant steady rain for 3 days, those areas flood.
Yes, they can. That's why more retention, and also being able to clear out the channels so that the water can flow at a faster rate so it can't rise as much. And there's all meant tons of different solutions, but the engineers know how to do this. If just given enough time and money, they can make it better.
And what are some of the other issues that you'd like to address once you're in
Well,
office?
well, of course, Sharia law. I think voters across my district, and I think across the state, are concerned about the movement to implement Sharia law. And as Governor Abbott has done, and me and many other leaders, we want solutions because it is a form of government, and it is a form of government that does not match our constitutional republic's form of government. So,
Well, and then you have a lot of people that say, well, that's racism and we're just picking on them. They do have freedom of religion, but there's certain constitutional there's items in the Constitution that prohibit them from creating their own governments, and of course, the
yes,
assimilation is the other big issue.
correct. I think across the board, regardless of what organization, what race you are, anything, if you're not going to assimilate and become an American, what are you doing here? So that is a concern, because when they say their goal is to come here to take over your country, I don't care who they are, that's a problem that needs to be addressed.
Well, certainly is. My other concern is, there's talks about school bonds and things of that nature. And one of the things that you discussed was we certainly don't want to strap our youth with this incredible debt. Go into a little bit about the explanation about what your thoughts are on the school bonds and what people really need to know about those issues.
Yeah, the school bonds are designed to be in an election where the small number of voters turn out, so that they can ensure that those who are part of the educational establishment, PTA, and the parents that are enthusiastic about wanting the schools to have more dollars are the voters that turn out. And so, one thing that did happen, Senator Bittencourt had a law passed where they put on those bonds now that this is a tax increase, which is a great thing, because those propositions were not written before to make it clear that it was a tax increase. I think
Well,
that moving those elections to an election where we have more voters turning out, it would be a better thing, because everybody's having to pay that bill.
Well, and what are some of the other things that are of great concern to you? Let's go into some of the people are worried about the more people we get here, and of course what we got through the southern border being wide open for the last previous administration was that we didn't get the best of the best. And I understand a lot of people will take sides with that, saying, well, so a lot of people come here to work, but we already know that it wasn't such a humanitarian effort. It was more of a crime designed by that previous administration. We've never seen numbers like that coming across the southern border. And what are some of the things that you feel the Harris County taxpayer should not put the bill for when we talk about criminal illegal aliens in this country?
Well, number one, remember the reason the Democrats want so many here is because the illegals were counted in the census. So by bringing more of them here, they can get more Democrat elected congressional seats. That's the main motivation. And there are some business leaders who want the cheap labor. I believe that we don't need that competition. I think that we should give American first, take care of Americans first and citizens that are here, because the impact of all these numbers that are coming here, it saturates our systems, it saturates our hospitals to the point where we're not really taking care of our own citizens.
Well, and I would agree with that. Just look at how much a Band-Aid costs you, because most often, if there's an injury or an illness, they don't go to a regular doctor. They don't have insurance. So
Right.
they seem to flood the emergency rooms. And we've already known that for years. That
Yes.
plays a great role in affecting what we pay in healthcare. And of course, I don't want to pay the bill for somebody who is here illegally. I have a struggle enough trying to pay my own bills.
Correct. A lot of voters feel that too. So that's why there's so many people who are against this mass illegal that bringing in so many people is that under Democrat administrations have happened. And so I'm endorsed by Texans for Strong Borders. And so I'm very much on board with us protecting our borders and taking care of Americans first.
Um, One of the things that I like to explain to people is, the moment that they start saying that ICE agents should be defunded and that, police should be defunded, those are certainly things of great concern to anybody who wants to live in safe communities. We know that the crime rates in Harris County have increased. What are some of the things that you would intend to do to bring some of the crime down, or represent certain groups, or what would you suggest we do collectively that can start reducing some of the crime-ridden areas in Harris County?
Well, number one, we got to take care of law enforcement and make sure they have the tools, the money to be able to do a responsible job. And we shouldn't have a sanctuary city policies, which is a tendency of many of our Democrat-controlled districts. Once again, American first, and that's why I'm endorsed by the Houston Police Officers Union as someone that is supportive of law enforcement and wants to make sure our people are safe. And we just got to make sure they got the right funding, the right tools, and allowed to do their jobs. We can't have, like the city of Houston has tried to do, to hamstrung our police from actually doing what the law says.
Well, and those are agreements that have been in place for many, many decades. It's not a written memorandum of
Yes.
understanding, but it's an agreement. It's no different than having somebody who commits a murder and is wanted out for a homicide in a different state. Those entities certainly would reach out if there was a warning in the system or the database is indicating that person was wanted for something. So I see it as, I'm like, they're just anti-ICE. And I know the police officers and the police chiefs and the sheriffs want to work with ICE, but sometimes it's all about the politics.
Yes.
Prevent them from doing that. Just look at the mess
Yes.
going on in City Hall with these rogue city council members that feel like nobody should be contacting ICE if they apprehend someone. What's your thought on that?
Uh, like I said, the other party wants as many people to come here illegally so that they could have the greater numbers for the census. And also, ultimately, they give them citizenship that they will vote with their party. That is their bottom line motivation. They don't care about this country. They care about their power. And so that is very sad. And, Americans have got to wake up and stand up for our Constitution, stand up for Americans first.
Well, and some of the things that are very concerning is, we just can't keep the status quo. The importance of Texas not losing to the Democratic Party. Texas is considered the number one state that does most trade with Mexico and vice versa. And so my concerns are, we have to find a balance, but we also have to make sure that we are securing who comes in and who doesn't. Now, as far as the economy, for this purpose of the interview, what are some of the things that you would do to change the community, businesses, the economy, the impact of how people spend money? What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, we've got to make sure that government is not putting in so many regulations and stuff that it makes it hard to do business. Because that's, we're seeing other companies now moving to Texas because of the abuse of these Democrat controlled states where they just can't do their business because it's too costly, too many regulations. So we have to have reasonable regulations. We have to have an environment that is business friendly, but at the same time, make sure we're taking care of our citizens here. And so I don't want them bringing in illegals to do their work. I want to make sure they're hiring, U.S. citizens. And I've seen it sometimes even in the engineering world, bringing in people from India that are taking jobs from Americans.
Listen, we're going to have to cut over to a commercial break real quick because we do have sponsors we want to highlight. Thank you for waiting.
When the stakes are high, clarity matters. In today's fast-moving media environment, misinformation spreads fast, especially around immigration policy, national security, and public safety. That's where Deason Consulting Services steps in. Led by Louisa Deason, former investigative journalist, DHS and ICE subject matter expert, and certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, Deason Consulting equips leaders, candidates, law enforcement, and executives with clear posture, confident delivery, and fact-based messaging. From immigration policy education and media response strategy to crisis communication and executive message development, Deason Consulting helps you cut through the rhetoric and speak with authority. Whether you're preparing for a press conference, navigating a complex policy issue, or facing high-pressure media scrutiny, we prepare you to lead. Deason Consulting Services. Strategic communication, informed leadership, measured response. Contact Deason Consulting today and be ready when it matters most. Call today 832-244-2488 or email louisa@deasonconsultingservices.com.
Have you ever felt like your health should feel better than this? More energy, better sleep, a clearer mind, a healthier gut, glowing skin, real balance? At All True Wellness, we believe wellness isn't just one thing. It's everything working together. We focus on personalized nutrition, gut health, clean beauty, longevity, and lifestyle coaching, so you can feel better from the inside out. Whether you're looking for one-on-one personalized wellness coaching or a transformational journey that may include peptides, hormone therapy, or weight loss programs, we help you create a custom plan designed specifically for your life and your goals. Because true wellness isn't a trend, it's a lifestyle. Visit alltruewellness.com to start your wellness journey today. All True Wellness. Empower your wellness journey by living age-free.
Well, we are back. I am Louisa Deason. I am your host for Frontline Facts. We are correcting the rhetoric, and we're coming back to our guest today.
Yeah, I don't mind having good qualified people if they're needed, but we shouldn't be passing over our American citizens for those jobs.
Well, and a lot of times what we've noticed now lately is that those are the categories of visas for foreign workers that are the most greatly abused, along with foreign student visas. And so I worked 9/11. I worked for ICE during that period of time, and I could tell you those categories were incredibly abused. Now, what is your vision or priority for fiscal responsibility for our area?
The state of Texas has got to be able to constrain its spending. And the easiest way to do that is to root out all the fraud. I mean, look at the fraud that we see in Minnesota, that we see in California. And we've got it in Texas too, probably not to the degree, but we're such a big state that there's fraudsters out there that are going to figure out some way to rip us off. And believe it or not, I think with the world of AI, we're going to be able to find and follow the dollars and follow the abuse at a level that we've never been able to before. But we've got to root it out. By rooting it out, we actually free up dollars that can be helped to reduce property taxes or to totally do away with property taxes for, the state portion of it, which is the funding of schools. So I'm all on board, and let's squeeze the dollars from the abuse, and then let's look at maybe freezing the budgets for a year or cutting them a small percentage for a year and then freezing them for another year, then go to zero-based funding after that to where they can grow with inflation, but they can't grow greater than that.
Well, and the fraud that we've seen is astronomical. I've never seen anything like it.
Yes.
I guess we live in a fortunate state where, we do have good representation and that we're not riddled with the problems Minnesota has. But look at California. I
Yes.
just think I read some statistics. I think they were online somewhere with one of the think tanks, and it said something like over 400 businesses have left New York and they've either gone to
Mhm.
Texas or they've gone to Florida. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, we certainly do want the businesses that want to thrive here, but we don't want their politics.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. As long as hopefully they're coming here because their politics identify with our state too.
Now, how do you see land use and the environment? We've always been a state where we have a lot of investors that come in and they purchase land and
Mhm.
they purchase properties, but is there a danger in who comes to buy property and who doesn't?
Well, this last legislative session, they actually prohibited now Chinese ownership of property. If you're going to have a government that's not necessarily a friendly government, you should look at what are they doing and why are they wanting to buy all this property. So I agree with having restrictions based upon what's in the best interest of the United States.
Now, as far as we've covered some of the things with, community safety and security and bringing down crime, but let's talk a little bit about the courts. You're very familiar with the fact that we have rogue judges and rogue DAs that just don't prosecute. I think part of the problem that's
Yes.
highlighted is the O'Donnell decree, and that's a big concern for many. It
Yes.
started out as a program that helped indigenous people be able to get out and pay the bonds or have some sort of representation, but that whole system has turned rogue. What are
Totally.
your views on that, and how would you fix that?
I think there's got to be a point where some of these at the state level, we need a we pop well, I think Governor Abbott has called for a state prosecutor. So when you have county prosecutors not prosecuting crimes, or they're just looking over because those people are friendly to their party, or just because their policies of the party don't care about law and order, then we can have the state come in and prosecute. Also, these abuse of our the O'Donnell ruling, like you said, it's a distortion. Maybe we need something at the state level to where there's an approval process, and with the checklist of items that are checked, such that if it goes into some areas that's on a checklist, then there's a process to where it can be reviewed by the state or even has to be voted on by the elected officials of the state.
Well, and I interviewed someone not too long ago that gave me some staggering statistics about the amount of people that are wanted for either capital murder or murder that are walking our streets based on that
Hmm.
decree. And that's
Yes.
really, really scary. I think the number was well over 1,200 people.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a number that's underneath the margin, but it's very scary to think we all want to be safe. We want convenience. We want a lifestyle, but we can't do it when we're fighting the kind of crime that we're seeing. And we have politicians that don't want the same safety that people that are voting them into office. I see it this way. Someone running in politics, once elected, you're serving the public that elected you. You're not there to do it the other way around.
Oh, it's scary what the number of people that are really hardened criminals that these Democrat judges and prosecutors have released upon the public. It's like it's flipped. The victim is actually punished more than the criminal who's doing the offenses.
Well, I've never seen anything like it. When you talk about illegal immigration, look at how many times the criminal illegal alien has been protected and released from custody, and there's no
Yes.
mention of the victim or the victim's family and how painful their loss has been. So there's obviously something that has happened in the last several years that have really changed the dynamics of how people think and just almost like a demonic behavior,
Correct.
which is crazy.
Yes, I mean, you have countries that have actually took their criminals and, exported them to United States, so they don't have to deal with the problems. It's crazy. They have less crime, so we can have more crime.
Well, let's go into something that's a little bit different. Let's go into the infrastructure and the transportation here in Harris County. How are things that those those agendas can be improved? I know that, we need to fix the roads, but we also need to make sure that we're taking care of our infrastructure and our transportation because a lot of people don't drive and we don't have a metro system, so to speak, or a rail system like most major cities do. What are some of your ideas and thoughts on that?
I believe that you're gonna have technology that's coming that's gonna solve a lot of this, and we're already seeing I don't know if you know that in, Harris County now, we have some of the self-driving Tesla cars,
I've
the
seen
robo
'em.
the robo taxis, and there's other companies that have ones too. And Elon Musk, they're gonna crank those things out by the hundreds of thousands a year. And I think it's gonna change transportation because the cost when you don't have to pay for a driver makes it to where it could actually be cheaper than a big bus in transporting people around, and people could go exactly door to door where they need to go
I
for
have not been brave enough to get into one of those driverless vehicles yet, but you see them all over Austin as well. I do a
Yes.
lot of work in Austin, so
Yeah, I would recommend you try the Teslas though when you do it because they actually have the ability to make logical decisions, and not like in the Waymos when they lose the connectivity. They were parked in the streets.
I just have never I haven't heard of one wrecking yet, but I mean, obviously that's that can obviously happen.
The numbers actually show they're a lot safer than human drivers, and that's going to be the thing I believe that drives the acceptance of these driverless vehicles is when the numbers and the show and what they already are showing it that they're much safer than humans.
Well, and a lot of that is just the technology world and where we're headed. Now, let's talk a little bit about your concerns about AI. For me, for example, having worked in law enforcement, my concern is
Mhm.
that it's going to be used for bad. And I do see the benefits of companies and technology taking us to a step farther, but people are afraid to lose their jobs. What can we say to that audience that is concerned about AI and technology taking over their jobs? Because we know that it could be a benefit to creation of jobs with AI because we'll need certified specialists and experts in those fields.
Right. People who know how to use AI to make efficiencies increase um, will have jobs. And now it will be some challenge for some people, but I just, my recommendation is that people just embrace it, learn it, so that you can be the most proficient with it at your job. Because I don't see, it will be disruptive to some jobs, I believe, but just like every major industry changes, when we went from buggies and horses, was the main transportation to the Model T. You had a whole tons of people who lost their jobs. When you had the elevator operators that were in the elevator to make the elevator go up and down, you didn't push a button in those days. Those people lost their jobs when they had the totally automated elevators. It's going to happen, but guess what? In both of those situations, people found jobs.
Well, and it's called adaptation. We must
Yes,
adapt to the
you
new one.
have to adapt. Now, AI, if it's used in schools, if it's used in government, I think we need laws to ensure that the most truthful AI engine is being used. And we could use all the AIs to check other AIs to come up with a process. But I think government's got to be diligent. We can't have our schools being brainwashed more than they have with the woke mindset of too many educators. We must have the most truthful usage of an AI in the schools as possible.
What's happening in schools and what can we do about making sure that we have teachers that are teaching our students the things that they need to teach them, social studies, English, the things that need to be taught instead of all this woke, crazy, nutty stuff that they're trying to, throw down our children's throats and trying to groom them. What are some of the things that you suggest or that we've seen and we've learned from that would be viable options to changing dramatically to make sure that our students are safe in school and that they're being taught the things they need to carry on in life further down the road?
Well, I believe one of the biggest things that actually happened recently was the fact that we have school choice that was passed in Texas. And school choice allows a parent to remove their child from a school that is failing them, that is teaching wokeness in the school. So, and even, our Democrats and independents, as well as Republicans, but if you're in a failing inner city school, now you have an opportunity to escape, to get away from those people who are brainwashing and are not giving a good education at all. And as a result, the schools are going to wake up and realize if they don't compete, if they don't give a product that the parents like and are happy with, they're going to lose more students. And I think the competition angle will actually improve public schools significantly. And if you're in a great public school, you like it, you don't have to worry about it. You have choice. Your choice is to stay there. So I think the opportunity and the competition is going to be a great thing. Now, I think AI will supplement the educators, and I don't think the educators are going to be able to help our children a lot more by having believe it or not, we're going to go down the path where they'll have robots assisting them in the school. But to be able to have a robot that is very knowledgeable, they'll have a PhD level in as many subjects as you want them to have. And they will be able to, I think we'll still have that personal environment. We'll still have a personal teacher. And we'll have that interaction with other students. So
Well, and that's something that's obviously commendable. I can remember having conversations with people and just trying to explain some of the books that some of the parents would bring and read out loud in front of some of the school town hall meetings and how
right.
they were treated. The parents were treated like like criminals, and you're thinking there's something wrong with this picture. I still am the parent of this child, and I still have the parental rights to this
Yes,
child. That obligation of parenting is not falling on the students, teachers, and on the school. It falls on the parents.
correct.
So, what are some of the thoughts about where we can go moving forward with Texas schools, or specifically schools in Harris County?
Well, I think that with AI, you could actually scan every textbook, every document that is used in the classroom environment to make sure there's no wokeness. And we could pass laws that must happen. So I can see an opportunity there to shortchange this. That in the competition, the ability of the parents to remove their students, I think could actually have a great impact on the quality of education. Because as you know, the last, I don't know, 30 years probably, the education quality has been going down. They have to lighten up the tests, for SATs, et cetera, to where people can get good scores because the quality of our education has been providing to our students has not been like it should be.
What do you think needs to be done for some of the straight? I know not everybody leaving school goes to a college, but I am a big believer in enforcing that there are students that would be a great fit for trade schools. I
Oh,
have a son who
most
didn't.
definitely.
I
In fact,
have an
that's
older son who didn't go to college, and of course, we've always instilled in him work hard. But trade schools are just as viable as trades. People in trades can make a lot of money as well, make a pretty good living at that. Plumbers,
oh,
electricians, things of
yes.
that nature.
I think that's where probably the biggest growth in good paying jobs is going to be because with robots and artificial intelligence, a lot of the office jobs, a lot of the manufacturing jobs can be replaced. But those who have unique skills, you know, in those trades will be able to work and have a great salary and a great future. In fact, I think they have more advantages than the college educated.
Well, and they certainly are learning hands on the job. Most of
Yes.
those require. I know that Mattress Mac has had some kind of a technology
Hmm.
school for young people that want to go through learning how to become a mechanic and things
Yes.
of that nature. And if you're really good with that kind of a trade, why not? I'm a
No,
big
yeah,
believer.
yeah.
I'm a big believer in trade schools. Now,
Yes.
are there any other things that we have not have discussed that you want to talk about? What are some of the other things on your campaign that you want people to know that you're passionate about and you intend to change?
Well, of course, upholding our God-given constitutional freedoms. We need government that looks out for the citizens. We need to make sure that our faith protect our life, protect the honor of our faith and our family values are upheld and actually regarded as significant for a good society. We need to, teaching civics in our educational systems so that we have good citizens. They understand the importance of getting a job and even going to church. That's what Mattress Mac actually, actually was. I saw him this last week, in fact, and he endorsed me too in my campaign. But he says that he preaches that, and where he says those two items: get a good job and go to church.
Well, and you think about, we've had instances outside in McKinney, Texas, for example. I've got some connections out there, and they won't let a child walk into a school with a Bible, but they'll let them walk in and hand out brochures that are Sharia law or that, have
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this picture? I understand freedom of religion, but when that religion or that cult or that government type processing starts to talk about, being able to spew rhetoric that is hatred towards America, then at that
Hmm.
point, I think you have to draw the line, and it's that's now you're making terroristic threats. You're no longer promoting a religion. You're now stepping way over that boundary.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, that's the whole motivation of Sharia law is to create a government organization that supersedes what our democracy, our republic, constitutional republic here in the United States is.
Now, one of the things that I keep thinking about is as we're talking about schools, we also have a lot of people that in my opinion, young students that are also maybe suffering from confusion and mental illness. This creation of all these different genders, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I believe it's mental illness more than anything else,
Yes,
and it's
it
confusion.
is.
So, what are we going to be doing that can change the rhetoric and maybe health wise provide programs that help those that need the help?
Well, I mean, number one, we've now make it illegal to transition, I guess, under 18-year-olds, which is great. Okay. They can't permanently damage them anyway until and adults can make their own decision, whether they want to be goofy or not. I think that part of our educational system, it is good to teach the wholesome family things that have made this country so strong and so powerful, made the country that it was. And if you go every time, a country deviates and goes down a path of deviancy, it actually tears apart the society and it tears apart the country. And those countries are no longer on this earth. So I think strong families and strong morals is very important to the success of any society.
I agree. Now, if people want to donate money to your campaign, I know that we're here in early voting again. And so when people want to find out information about who you are, what your background is, where can they donate money? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, yes. You can go to my website, stanart.com. That's STANSTANART.com. Or you can, if you're simple, you can want to go standwithstan.com. Goes to the same place.
Now, you obviously are busy. I see you at almost every event that I'm present in. So where can people find you this week? Or
I'll be
I know
at
that
the,
you'll probably be at the voting polls in your
yes.
area most of the week, but where can people still catch a glimpse of you, say in an event in maybe Northwest Houston or in Harris County?
My wife is president of Texas Tea Party Republican Women. So they have monthly meetings. That's one place. But then the other Republican clubs in the area, you can usually find me. You will find me at the polls this whole next week. I'll be there most of the time. I have to go to two Governor Abbott events. He's actually coming to my district, Governor Abbott is.
That's
He'll be
fabulous.
he will be at Don Ramon's tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. That is Monday, the first day of early voting on the 18th. So
That's
he
wonderful.
but I'll be most of the time at the George H.W. Bush Community Center. That is where most of my voters, the largest percentage of my voters vote at in the
That's
district.
where I vote as well.
Yes. So you'll find me there most likely unless I'm at one of those 2 Abbott events.
Now, is there anything that you want to share? One of the things that I want to instill is that the young people still sitting on the fence that go, well, I'm so tired of the drama. I'm so tired of the infighting and I'm so tired of everything. I'm just exhausted. I just would rather not vote. And my concern is some people are just mentally exhausted, but I still want to explain to them how important it is to get out and to vote in your local elections because your local elections are the most important. They affect your state and then, of course, your federal elections. But what would you say to the group sitting back saying, I'm not sure if it's even worth going out to vote? Let's get them off that fence, Stan.
Well, the easiest way is if you stay home and don't vote, then you lose your right to complain. So for the next 2 years, 4 years, whatever the term is of these elected officials, you mean zip it up because you made the decision to not participate. Number 2, when you do participate, do a little bit of homework. Do some homework to where you are confident that I'll say it, the worst of the 2 evils he gets elected. Okay. And sometimes it's that way. Sometimes it's the best of the 2 best, so, do your homework and
Yeah,
participate.
well, I think we've come to close to the end of our show. I want to thank you very much for complying with finally me hounding you to give us an interview. And I appreciate your time on a Sunday, but I want everybody that's been listening, I want to thank you all. This podcast will air next Friday. Thank you, Stan Stanart. You have an amazing background, and we wish you the very best in the polls later this week. And of course, you're listening to Frontline Facts with Louisa Deason. Stay tuned for our next episode.
Thank you, Louisa. Really appreciate it. You all have a blessed day.